Good morning, welcome to Morning Outlook. This is Kim speaking on Thursday the 15th of November. So looking at euro dollar first, and well, there was a bit of brightness out there, although I'm not too sure how bright it was. The Italians are sticking their heels in there on their debt situation and insisting they're not going to obey. So that's still going on there, but there's sort of slight evidence that an agreement's been made on the Brexit situation. The only trouble is, of course, that agreement's now got to go through Parliament, and in fact there are rumours that there may be a vote of no confidence in the Prime Minister soon, so we'll see. For now though, the euro's doing okay as well as the pound, and well, I'll say as well as the pound, but it's doing okay. Where are we? Well, we're heading still closer towards that weekly pivot. What first? Well, as ever, well, we're in as I say, a marginal uptrend here. Yesterday got particularly bitty there. We could be heading back south towards the daily pivot. There's a reasonable probability of that being hit, of course, as ever, or a high probability of that being hit. So maybe that's the first part this morning. The second part may be the retracement from that back upwards, but I'm still not overly convinced in the bigger picture of euro. I still think that in the bigger picture, and you can see the dailies, it's still below the original trend line even. It's still bearish in the bigger picture. The intermediate time frames maybe a more bullish sign. We've got the higher low confirmed in on the 4-hourly, so there is the possibility for more upside, but I'm just wary that at some point we could see a break. I've got this trend line across the lows here. Actually, I could simply put that across the lows there, and that may be a clear mark in the sand, clearer mark in the sand to decide on highs or lows. Now we may get an early reach down. The ranges of these days are pretty small at the moment, so on the euro may get an early move down. If it comes down to this daily pivot, I'll be watching for the potential bounce. Any breakthrough, maybe joining the short side. As I say, big picture, I'm still bearish on it, but intermediate time frame, well, got to be a bit bullish for now, but patient and waiting for retracements. So looking at the pound is like, well, it's whippy, to say the least. The daily charts doesn't really give it full justice of how whippy it is. And it's only when you come down to these lower time frames, in fact you must well just put the 60-minute there, and you realize how whippy it is. And there's potential for further whip for sure. If there was a vote of no confidence and the voting went on, I don't think it would be particularly good for the pound, and we could see it selling off some more. And then depending on who gets voted in, if there's someone else gets voted in, it's all ifs and buts, isn't it? But what it does suggest, and the very fact that there's so many ifs and buts, is it could continue to be volatile. So that's the pound. Dollar yen, deal or no deal? Dollar yen, well, it's followed the other markets over a little bit with a little bit of a rollover. It's consolidated that was right through to most of yesterday, broke through in the end, but not really convincingly. It's hanging in there. Whether it will retrace back to this underside of this consolidation zone and eventually roll over, we'll see. But it's well, looking okay for a rollover at some point, and maybe if it gets back up and then starts selling again, well, maybe this time it'll run back down towards its daily S1, but not overly convinced either way on it, and that's what's keeping me away from it. Aussie dollar, well, the Aussie dollar had some great news out overnight for the Aussie dollar. The employment data, there's a lot more employed, and employment rate dropped overall, so dropped down to 5%. So we've seen these sort of decent low unemployment figures for a lot of these countries now, and it's pushed up as a consequence of that. What could be done today? Possibly not so much, because it's already had a half decent run, but and it's in fact showing some divergence where it is at the moment. And so yes, it's got an untouched daily pivot. Maybe it could get back down to that, but I think it may be a big ask with the good news that was out there, unless something else really hits the market. So at the moment I think it may show a retracement from this divergence that's happening, but at the moment it's still erring on the more bullish side on this intermediate time frame at least. In fact, even on the dailies, unlike some of the markets, it's the more bullish pair. Okay, and finally the Canadian dollar. Well, it's holding in there. It's not rolled over. It's got the weekly pivot below, which as I said earlier on in the week, it could draw it down at some stage, but it's just holding and consolidating now again. Maybe if we see the dollar, I mean, it's a bit like the yen here in terms of its price action, less convincing, and spike is anything yesterday as well. Well, what we're going to see, is it going to roll over properly? If it does, well then I'd be looking at that weekly pivot. Otherwise, at the moment, it's as ever, it's not a player. So there we go. Nothing else there. So main news today, well, coming up, we've got the retail sales for the UK at 9:30. May just create that extra bit of volatility throughout the day today. We may be getting more Brexit news, etc., which could create volatility on the pound, which could drive it either way. We've got an MPC speaker later on, that's Bank of England speaker at 1 o'clock. Then 1:30 we've got US retail sales. So there's that's the mainies. There is of course crude oil inventories at 4 p.m. and we've got Fed Chair Powell speaking at 4:30. So there are a few things there. The Powell's actually speaking about Hurricane Harvey recovery efforts. So not expecting lots of volatility around his discussions unless he goes off piste. Right, have a great day. That's it for me. Bye for now.